Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to show you how much dividend income I made this week from high yield ETFs. But before I get into the video, please smash that like button so the algorithm gods know that I'm here, and hit subscribe if you're new so you know whenever I go live where I talk about finance news, stocks, and investing, or I publish a new video like the one you're watching. With that out of the way, let's get into it. All right, guys, so this video might be a little scatterbrained because I'm kind of jumping all over the place and I have a lot to talk about. So it's not just going to be a portfolio update, all right? Or a portfolio dividend update. So there was a lot of stuff that happened this week, especially in the news. So we'll be covering some of that in this video. And I also do acknowledge that I have not been around for probably about a week and change, where I haven't really been uploading. Had a lot of friends come from out of town. Of course, some of you guys might know that I do live in Thailand. So I had friends, fly over from, America, from the Middle East, and I wanted to give them my full attention. So, but anyways, yeah, I hope next week I'll be more on the ball about getting some content out. I do have some big changes coming to this portfolio, right? Or to my portfolio in general. So I'll be discussing those changes, those strategy changes and everything else, in the probably next week, once everything is more finalized and everything is more settled. Because, this is going to be a big change, especially for, me as the investor, obviously, but as the portfolio as a whole. So I definitely want to cover this. And this is coming from, definitely a lot of deep research that I've been spending a lot of my time on as well. I have been really diving deep into monetary policy and crypto/Bitcoin. So, again, I'll be talking more about that next week. Anyways, guys, I don't have any really new position changes. Everything is pretty much the same. I still own PLTW, NVDW from Roundhill. These are two weekly pay ETFs. I own Chippy, which is a semiconductor ETF, and from YieldMax, and I own XPay and XDTE. All right, so the ones we're going to be talking about for this week that paid out is XDTE, NVDW, and PLTW. Now, Chippy, they usually pay this week as well, but because of the day off that we had yesterday from the stock market on Thursday, this will be paying out on Monday. So I'll just roll that up into next week's update. Now, there was some big news from Roundhill, all right, and they came out with a bunch of new ETFs, okay? So in case you didn't know that, they now have new ETFs for their weekly pay lineup. They came out with the Meta weekly pay ETF, Hood, BRK.B, Berkshire Hathaway, and it looks like Amazon as well. So that's really, really cool. They have a lot of the new, almost a full set of Mag 7 stocks in this. They're just missing Microsoft. Okay, so you guys know that you have to be bullish on the stock. There has to be a lot of momentum behind these weekly pays in order for the distributions to be really, really good. And these are 1.2x levered positions, okay, or 120% exposed to the underlier. So if the stock moves up, you'll 10%, you'll see probably like a 12%. But if it goes down, 10%, you'll see a negative 12% return. Okay, so you have to be careful how you use these. NVIDIA, a lot of crazy things have been happening. Hopefully this whole US-China trade agreement gets settled. And then NVIDIA/AMD/ the semiconductor space, something like Chippy will see greener days ahead because they'll be able to, get semiconductors to China. So we're still waiting to hear what is going to come of that. There hasn't been any new updates. The last update I saw was that Trump, talked about the rare earth minerals, and that's been approved. And he's still, I guess, waiting on President Xi to sign, this agreement. So, or at least, this temporary truce. So again, we're still waiting on some more clarity. This week has been a lot of FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. But anyways, again, I'm sorry for being scattered brain. Let's continue. Okay. XDTE is a 0DTE cover call ETF from Roundhill. Let's take a look at how much these ETFs actually paid me. All right. So we had XDTE, they paid 22 cents per share. You guys know I have 1,500 shares of XDTE. Then we have Chippy, that is paying 40 cents per share, and I have 200 shares of Chippy. All right, but that won't be paying me until next week. And then for the weekly pay ETFs, I have 45 cents for NVDW and then 47 cents for PLTW. Okay, and I have 777 shares of PLTW and 82 shares of NVDW. So again, those payouts were pretty good. Okay. As far as margin, okay, I am using a lot of margin. You guys know this. And I have to give you guys a quick disclaimer. All right. This is a very high risk portfolio. All right. This, in a severe drawdown, in a severe correction, a 35% drawdown, etc., you can bet that this portfolio would probably get crushed. Okay. Do not copy my trades. Do not copy my holdings just because I'm some guy on YouTube. All right. That looks like he has all of his stuff together, because truth is, none of us actually do. We can all get crushed in some way, shape, or form, right? We have to practice risk management. But for now, I do have a low risk. Okay. I'd have to burn through or have a drawdown of $40,000 before I get what's known as a margin call. Now for the entire account, yes, it looks nice, right? With the margin included, that's $211,000. And I know some people might be watering at the mouth and they're like, wow, that's such a nice portfolio, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. I'm used to having margin or having debt, especially with my investing, because coming from the real estate space, I've had several mortgages, lots and lots of mortgages, right? So I already am comfortable with debt. The difference between mortgages and margin is that, real estate is not going to drop 30% in a single day, whereas the stock market can absolutely drop 30% in a single day. Okay. Has that ever happened? Of course not. It probably takes a couple of days, but as we saw from, liquidation day or liberation day, we saw a decline as sharp as 10% in a single day. So you guys got to keep that in mind. All right. But yes, this is a portfolio valued around $211,000 with the margin included. And this is what I was paid. All right. This is what I was paid for the distributions. I have $333 coming from XDTE. I have $368 coming from PLTW, and then $352 coming from NVDW. Now that is really, really cool. To give you guys a really high level, super high speed notepad, because I don't use spreadsheets on this channel. PLTW, again, this is the payouts, $368, $352, and then $333 for a total of $1,054.87. Not a bad week. All right. Definitely not a bad week. Next week, I'm projecting I'll probably make another $1,100. And I believe, we'll end this month out in probably the $5,300 to $5,500 range for dividend income. So definitely not bad. Okay. Definitely. I like that. That's obviously a good number to have. And, if we multiply that by 12, I'm looking at almost a $60,000 annualized dividend. Now, one huge thing about this whole portfolio, at least these cover call ETFs and, these high yield, ultra high yield ETFs, these dividends will fluctuate from week to week. They're not consistent except for XPay. XPay pays a targeted 20% distribution when annualized, which is really, really cool. But everything else, Chippy, NVDW, PLTW, XDTE, these these dividend payouts, distribution payouts, they will be different week to week. So you have to keep that in mind. All right. This is why when you invest into these high yield ETFs, you have to take it with an approach of probably a little more active management. While they are passive in nature, you still have to really monitor what's going on in the portfolio, more so than if you were just investing into like an S&P 500 index like VOO, or, maybe the QQQ, which tracks the NASDAQ 100. All right, so let's hop into some news, guys, because this week was definitely spicy. All right, so first off, we ended the week with the S&P 500 low. All right. We ended 55 basis points in the red. So it looked like it was just trending down this whole week. Of course, we had a lot of stunning developments. Okay. First, we had the Fed, all right, come out. They did their meeting. The FOMC did their meeting. Jerome Powell said they're going to keep rates steady. They still see that the economy is still doing very well. Labor markets are doing very well. But, we still don't know the full impact of tariffs. We don't know the full impact of what's, how they're going to actually impact inflation, et cetera. So he still, or when I say he, I mean the Federal Reserve is still taking a wait and see approach. There is some narratives out there saying that we could see rate cuts in July. I see that, because that's coming from the Federal Reserve Waller, one of the heads. So he's saying that we could see a potential cut in July. I don't think so. I really think we'll probably be seeing cuts, maybe one cut later this year, maybe in November, December timeframe. So that's just my thought. You know, we were set up this year in the beginning to have, you know, maybe 2 or 3 cuts. And that's just looking less and less likely because we have such a good, you know, a strong economy. But we did have the inflation spike up just a bit this month. Okay, we had inflation come up just a bit this month, but not enough to scare the Fed. So we'll see what comes of this. All right. We also had the biggest one that happened this week, which caused a lot of FUD. Okay, we have Iran and Israel beefing. They've been launching and lobbing as many missiles as they potentially can at each other, and it's just been getting worse and worse. And now the U.S. is getting roped into this. This, you know, war, tit for tat, has spiked oil futures up quite a bit. Okay, over the last month, we can see that just oil futures have been climbing like crazy. Now, just going back to this, again, this is a finance channel, but you know, this stuff can impact the broader market. You know, if the U.S. gets dragged into this, I could see the broader market probably having a sell-off. We've seen in past, you know, conflicts, the Ukraine-Russian war, we've seen the, you know, sell-off happen there. And we've also seen a sell-off happen during the invasion of Iraq, right? Whenever there's fear, uncertainty, and doubt, the market sells off. At least, you know, during the Iraq war, or the invasion of Iraq, and definitely the Russian-Ukraine war, when things, you know, settled and the U.S. took a position of whatever it was going to do or whatever it did at the time, then there was more clarity and certainty. And then the stock markets eventually, you know, bounced back. So just keep that in mind that, you know, broader conflicts outside of the United States can impact the stock market. Again, investors are humans, and humans, we are, you know, we invest based off of emotion. So just keep that in mind. All right. We also had a huge thing happen. The U.S. Senate passed a stablecoin bill, which was a huge milestone for the crypto industry. And one of the big popular IPOs of the year, Circle Internet Group, which is, you know, one of the creators behind USDC, in conjunction with a partnership with Coinbase, they saw their stock just absolutely ripped to the high side, 120%. So this is exciting, and congrats to anyone who got in on the Circle IPO from Robinhood. So congrats to you guys. But this stock has been absolutely ripping, and this could be seen as, you know, a very big, you know, tailwind for stable coins and, you know, crypto adoption. So again, this was just in the news, and I wanted to cover it because I didn't cover it this whole week. But, you know, if you're investing in any, you know, ETFs or high yield ETFs or any stocks related to stable coins like Coinbase, you know, definitely shout out to you. And as a matter of fact, you know, when I say they, I mean Roundhill came out with, or they have COIW, which is the Coin Weekly Pay ETF, right? So I think this one's going to gain a lot of traction probably as time goes on. So anyways, that was big. Circle did really well. And I just want to make this also known to the audience that Roundhill changed their distribution calendar for some of their ETFs. Okay, you may have seen the post, but I just want to cover it here. We can see that, you know, now if you were to invest strictly in Roundhill ETFs, that you could potentially on paper get paid every single day of the week. All right, whether that's your goal or not is entirely up to you. I'm not saying that is a goal that I personally want. You know, I like to invest in things I understand, and I would not just invest in something just because it pays me on, you know, a Thursday or a Wednesday or a Tuesday, right? I want to invest in things I understand and that I'm actually bullish on. So, you know, but shout out to Roundhill. Thank you guys for doing this. The big one was that they changed, I believe, the Ethereum cover call ETF to a weekly payer. That was also a big change for this ETF, right? And for Roundhill. So outside of that, guys, I think that'll probably do it. I've been rambling on a bit, and I know you guys got some important things to do. It is a Friday, so enjoy your weekend, all right? And be sure to go out, touch some grass, get some sun, all right? Get off the computer, stay off finance land until Monday. And I will see you guys in the next video. You guys have a wonderful weekend. Take care.